Well, hello everybody. Welcome back. I hope that you're enjoying this video series and you're starting to see how important it is for us, myself, Dr. J, and hopefully others in the future, to put the spotlights on the many dilemmas related to the traditional dating, Islamic datings, that is, especially in this case when it comes to the origin of Muhammad, his history, and many other details concerning his life. So we are going to take a closer look now at the extant documentation or manuscripts related to these sources. You know, we hear about Al-Tabari, we hear about Bukhari, we hear about Ibn Hisham, we hear about Ibn Ishaq, and the list goes on and on and on. But have you ever asked yourself, what is the earliest surviving complete manuscript that proves that those people existed or even wrote something? With that, let's turn our attention to Dr. J.
Okay, now why are we even bringing this up? This all has to do with a friend of yours and mine named Farid Responds. You know Sheikh Farid. You know who he is.
He's no sheikh at all, but that's okay.
He calls by Sheikh Farid.
Yeah.
He's been a constant critic of yours. He's been a constant critic of mine.
It's a badge of honor, actually.
It is, because he's always taken us so seriously, and he loves to hammer us on this issue. In fact, people have always asked, Jay, all these references you give to all these guys, Hisham, Waqidi, Bukhari, Muslim, Majad, and Tirmidhi, and all the rest, you go on and on about their dates. But have you ever studied those dates and ever studied them? And Farid really did a great thing about him. A year or two ago, he decided to take me on this. And he really ridicules me, which is great. I love being ridiculed because I'm so used to it now. And the more they ridicule, the more I realize this, I'm really getting under their skin. This seems to really bother him. And he's in his office there. And he says, Jay, you have no idea what you're talking about. You talk about Ibn Hisham as if he's the earliest, and Waqidi, he's the earliest, 200 years. There are so many others. And then he starts picking all these books off his shelf, one after another. What about this guy here, or the Muwatta of Ibn Malik? What about this guy here? He just gets one after another, and he starts just reading them, and just reading them, and just reading them, their names.
Yep.
All of these, great plethora, about 5 different books he brings out. This entourage. And he says, these are all were actually there, Jay. They actually knew him. They saw him. They are.
How come they're not prominent books anyway?
Say again?
How come these books are not prominent books compared to the others?
Hold on.
Yeah. No, I'm just raising a question.
That's not the problem.
Yeah. That's
not the problem. And whereas you're going to see. So I decided, well, this is true. He's right. I've never heard these names. How is it that they're not prominent? Because nobody considers them that important. More than that, there's nothing in what they're writing that really gives us a handle on what's going on.
And yet they lived with Muhammad, he says, right?
Supposedly. This is what's fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, he was being careful. He didn't really say that they were living with Muhammad.
Or
but he says
most of the event.
They're all earlier than Ibn Hisham.
Right.
That's what he said.
Right.
Every one of these is earlier than Ibn Hisham. So that's earlier than 833.
Okay.
Remember, whenever we give dates to someone named, that is the day they died, okay?
Okay. Yeah,
Just
that's
like
right.
Jesus died in 33 AD. Muhammad died in 632. You always put their death dates. And the reason we do that, there's a reason for this, is because up until they died, they could change it and move it and manipulate it and accrete it and delete it all the time. The canonical text that we have would have been close to their death because that's the last rendition for that certain person. That's why we give their death dates.
That's right.
Because sometimes we do know the date, specific date, because they say so. But a lot of times we just know it happened during their lifetime. So he is saying that everything, all of these references after references come before 833, before 835.
So let us dissect these things.
And so I decided, well, that's a good point. And then he said, what is your criteria for what you want? Give me your criteria so we can even have a discussion on this. So I'm going to give my criteria right now, and I'm going to go, and we're going to then start introducing it, exactly what we have found. Now, this happened 2 years ago, and I have my Dr. Pat Andrews has been working on this for 2 years. He decided to take Farid at his word. And he said, okay, let us go and see exactly who these guys are that he's referring to. And let's go see what we don't know about these individuals. Let's go put them to practice, and let's put them into a context of date by date by date by date chronology. That's taken about 3 years to do that. I introduced it just briefly on your show back in the last year before Christmas time. in December of 2024. We're now in 2025. I want to start putting this and show you visually what we're going to do. But let's start. What's the criteria we're looking for? It's the same criteria that was asked of us when Wellhausen and the University of Tübingen in the 1800s started confronting Jesus Christ, his historicity, whether or not he died on the cross, whether or not he rose again, but specifically his crucifixion, whether or not he even existed.
Right.
The historical Jesus. They confronted us with evidence from that century. And they said, you don't have anything that's complete. You don't have any Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We don't have any of the documents. The earliest we have that's complete would be Sinaiticus, the Alexandrinus, and the Vaticanus. The Sinaiticus is 325. That's the 4th century. Same with the Vaticanus, 325. The Alexandrinus is 400, so that's the 5th century. So the complete manuscripts we have for the New Testament are 4th and 5th century, redacted back, they say, to the 1st century. We have nothing from the 1st century. And, back in the 1800s, that was true. They were just beginning to find those in the 1800s, Sinaiticus and the others. And so it really caught us with in the headlights. We didn't know what to do at that time. So we started scouring around, and there had been a huge amount of documentation. We have the John Ronan's manuscript in Manchester, which is portions of the Gospel of John. We have the Bodmer Papyrus in Switzerland. We have the Chester Beatty manuscripts. They're in Dublin, which are much of the letters of Paul. We also have now the early church fathers' quotations. We have 85,000 of them that we've accumulated, 36,000 that predate the 4th century, Sinaiticus, Alexandrinus, and the Vaticanus, the Metropolitan Codices. So we have these 36,000 we can look at, a completely different genre than the manuscript evidence, and they all agree with the manuscript evidence, and these are before the 4th century. And then we have the translations. By the 6th century, we have over 2,300 of these translations. But what's interesting, it's a complete different genre of the lectionaries, of the manuscript, a complete different genre from the early church fathers' letters. There has been no other piece of literature that can just make the claim I've just made. Now, being that as is being said, since we had to go and find all this material to support the gospel evidence, to support Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the letters of Paul, and all the other New Testament writings, since we've had to do that, and we've struggled to find them because so much of them were destroyed. To be fair, almost all of them were written on papyrus because this is the cheap man's paper. In the early days, the church was not very wealthy. In order to be able to write on vellum, which is animal skin, you had to be very wealthy to do so. So they only had papyrus. So we would not expect to find the originals for any of these. The fact that we have found fragments of papyrus is amazing in and of itself. But see, Muslims can't make that claim. They were not dependent on papyrus. They had vellum, because why? We're talking about caliphal courts. By the time the Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, these are all caliphs. By the time you get Muawiyah, and by the time you get Abdul Malik, you have these guys controlled all the way from Tripoli to India and from Turkey down to Spain. And by the time you get to Abdul Malik, from Spain to India and from Turkey down to Spain, they were huge empires, had lots of wealth, and all of these writers are coming after this period. Remember I said these are all Abbasid writers.
That's right.
These are all from 750 on, so they were all in the caliphal courts. They're in Baghdad. They would have had vellum. They would have had parchment. They would not have wasted their time on papyrus. So we're going to ask this question. Show us these fragments. Show us these manuscripts, and let's ask, when did they get written? So we're going to start diving into that. We're not looking for papyrus. We're looking for parchment. And we're looking for the first extant manuscripts for every one of these guys. Can you see why we're asking this? This is absolutely important because we're going to shut down Farid. So when he says, what's my criteria? I want something that's durable, that you can put your hand on, that's complete.
Complete is the word.
There you go.
Yeah, because he or someone else is going to say, oh, I can show you fragments. Well, that's not what we're looking for. Fragments mean it's incomplete. We want something complete.
We want something that is complete. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. And now we're getting into it. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where the mud hits the fan. Because what we have found, Muslims are not going to like.
Very good. Very exciting. I hope everyone is enjoying this. And I hope that you are anxious and with excitement waiting for the next episode. Until then, have a blessed day, everyone. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. And ring the bell so you will be notified when we release new content. Our mission is to reach Muslims with the gospel of Jesus Christ and help Christians engage with their Muslim neighbors. If you want to join us in this life-changing work, please support us on patreon.com/Sira International, or just click on the link below.